The rain fell softly on the streets of Portland, creating a rhythmic melody that seemed to echo my own discontent. I stood by the window, watching droplets race down the glass, each one a tiny reminder of the life I had built, predictable, safe, yet utterly stagnant. At 45, I often found myself reflecting on choices made long ago, decisions that had led me to this moment. My marriage to Tom had become a series of routines, shared meals that felt more like obligations than moments of connection, evenings spent in silence as we both retreated into our screens. The arrival of a new neighbor had disrupted this monotony. His name was Alex, and he moved in next door just as spring began to awaken the city from its winter slumber. He was different, vibrant and alive, with an energy that seemed to fill the air around him. I first noticed him while taking out the trash one Saturday morning. He was struggling with a couch that appeared far too large for his front door. "Need a hand?" I called out, surprising myself with my willingness to engage. He looked up, brushing sweat from his brow with a smile that lit up his face. "If you don't mind helping me wrestle this beast inside." We laughed as we maneuvered the couch together, our camaraderie growing with each awkward twist and turn. In those brief moments, something stirred within me, a flicker of excitement long buried beneath layers of obligation and routine. Afterward, we exchanged pleasantries over coffee at a nearby cafe, an inviting spot known for its rich brews and cozy corners filled with mismatched furniture. The aroma enveloped us as we settled into plush chairs by the window. "Have you lived in Portland long?" he asked between sips. "Most of my life," I replied, feeling an unexpected warmth at his curiosity about me. "It's home." "I can see why," he said thoughtfully. "There's something special about this city." As we spoke about art galleries and upcoming festivals, the annual Rose Festival just around the corner, I felt an unfamiliar thrill coursing through me. It was exhilarating to share laughter and stories with someone who wasn't bound by years of familiarity or expectations. Yet beneath this newfound connection lay an uncomfortable truth, a sense of longing for something more than what my marriage offered. Guilt crept in like the shadows that danced across the cafe walls as I thought of Tom at home, likely engrossed in another episode of a show we used to watch together but now felt distant from. Days turned into weeks as our casual encounters became more frequent. We met for coffee whenever our schedules allowed it, sharing stories that revealed pieces of our lives hidden beneath layers of mundane existence. Each meeting ignited sparks within me. They were small but powerful reminders of who I once was before settling into complacency. One afternoon, as clouds gathered overhead threatening rain, Alex suggested we take a walk along the waterfront park after finishing our coffees. The vibrant colors of blooming flowers lined the path leading to serene views across the river, a stark contrast to my gray existence at home. "I love how everything feels alive here," he remarked as we strolled side by side. I nodded absent-mindedly but couldn't shake off the nagging feeling that every moment spent with him pulled me further away from my responsibilities at home. Yet there was an undeniable connection between us, an unspoken understanding that transcended words. As raindrops began to fall softly around us, I felt an electric charge in the air. It was as if nature itself conspired to heighten our senses. We ducked beneath a nearby awning just as the downpour intensified, a sudden storm out of nowhere. "Looks like we're trapped," he joked lightly, glancing down at me with those warm eyes that held so much promise. I laughed nervously but felt my heart racing in response to his proximity. The world around us faded away, all that mattered were those fleeting moments under shelter from the storm. Then it happened, without thinking or planning. I leaned closer until our lips met in a gentle kiss. It felt both thrilling and terrifying all at once. The taste of rain lingered on both our mouths as if sealing this secret between us, a moment suspended in time where nothing else existed but us two. But reality crashed back quickly when I pulled away, breathless and confused by what had just transpired. "I shouldn't have done that," I whispered hurriedly while avoiding his gaze. shame washed over me like cold water splashed against my skin amidst the warmth radiating from him. Maybe not, he replied softly yet firmly without judgment etched across his features, but there was something deeper there too, a shared understanding tinged with longing for more than either could openly admit right now. As we stood together under shelter from pouring rain outside Portland's familiar sights swirling around us, the weightiness settled heavily upon my chest again. Guilt mixed with exhilaration clashing violently inside me like thunder rumbling overhead, reminding me how fragile everything truly is when faced with choices made impulsively without foresight or caution taken into account beforehand. Suddenly realizing how far from home I had strayed, not just physically but emotionally, it struck hard like lightning illuminating dark skies above. All those years spent building walls instead of bridges had led me here today, teetering on edge between safety found within familiar comforts versus exhilarating unknowns waiting beyond reach if only willing enough risk everything left behind. And then there was Tom. Would he notice? Would he care? Or would he continue drifting through life unaware while I chased after fleeting moments filled with passion? The rain continued falling relentlessly outside. Droplets racing down glass mirrored my thoughts swirling chaotically within. It seemed both beautiful yet hauntingly bittersweet, reminding me what lay ahead may change everything forever. The rain continued to patter against the window, a soothing yet unsettling backdrop to my thoughts. I had spent countless hours in this very spot, sipping coffee and watching life unfold outside. Yet today, my mind was elsewhere. The memory of Tom's laughter echoed in my ears, a stark contrast to the silence that had settled in my marriage. I glanced at the clock. It was nearly time for our coffee date. I had convinced myself that it was just a friendly meeting between neighbors. But deep down, I felt the weight of anticipation knotting in my stomach. I wanted to know more about him, to uncover the layers behind those warm brown eyes. When I arrived at the cafe, the familiar aroma of freshly brewed coffee enveloped me like a comforting embrace. Tom was already seated at our usual table by the window, his easy smile lighting up the dim space. He looked relaxed, as if he belonged there, and for a moment, I envied his carefree demeanor. "Hey there," he greeted me warmly as I settled into my chair. "Hi," I replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. We exchanged small talk about the weather and local events, typical conversation starters that felt increasingly hollow as the minutes passed. Yet beneath the surface chatter lay an undeniable current of connection that both thrilled and terrified me. "So," he leaned in slightly, "how's your week been?" I hesitated before responding. "Busy with work and family stuff," I said casually, but inside, I felt a pang of guilt for not sharing more. "You know how it is." He nodded knowingly. "I can imagine." As we talked about our lives, his recent move from California and my long-standing roots in Portland, I noticed how easily we slipped into deeper topics. We spoke about dreams deferred and passions lost over time. Each revelation brought us closer together, every shared laugh chipped away at the walls I had built around myself. "I used to love painting," Tom shared, his voice softening as he reminisced about his past. "Really? What kind?" I asked, genuinely intrigued. "Watercolors mostly," he said with a wistful smile. "There's something magical about capturing fleeting moments on paper." His passion resonated within me. It reminded me of days spent with easels and brushes before life took over with its responsibilities and routines. The cafe buzzed around us as we continued our conversation. Time seemed to slip away unnoticed until dark clouds rolled in outside, casting shadows across our table. "I think it's going to rain again," Tom remarked casually as he glanced out the window. Just then, heavy droplets began to fall against the glass, a rhythmic melody that seemed to echo our earlier conversations about life's unpredictability. "Do you want to get out of here?" he suggested suddenly, his eyes sparkling with mischief. My heart raced at his invitation. Part of me wanted to say yes while another part screamed caution. but curiosity won out over hesitation as we stepped outside into the downpour together. The world transformed into a watercolor painting, colors blurred by rain while laughter danced between us like electric sparks igniting something long dormant within me. We walked along the sidewalk under an awning until we reached a small park nearby where trees swayed gently in rhythm with raindrops falling from their leaves. "This feels good," he said with genuine delight as we stood beneath shelter together. "Yes," I replied softly, feeling lighter than I had in years. And then it happened. A moment suspended in time where nothing else mattered except for us standing there drenched by rain and illuminated by an unspoken understanding between two souls yearning for connection. Without thinking further or weighing consequences against desire, we kissed. The world faded away, all that existed was this shared breath mingling under stormy skies, a brief escape from reality filled with longing and hope wrapped tightly around each heartbeat echoing through my chest. As we pulled apart breathless yet exhilarated by what just transpired between us, the weight of guilt crashed back down upon me like an unrelenting tide pulling me under once more. "What have we done?" whispered through my mind like an urgent plea demanding attention while simultaneously urging me forward into unknown territory filled with possibilities beyond imagination yet fraught with perilous risks lurking just beyond sight. We stood there for what felt like eternity before finally retreating back inside where warmth awaited us, not just from heat radiating off steaming cups but also from newfound connections forged amidst chaos swirling through hearts forever changed by one fleeting moment of vulnerability shared under relentless rain. As Tom resumed his seat across from me, his expression shifting between confusion and exhilaration, I couldn't help but wonder if this was merely an inflection point or if destiny had conspired against reason itself leading us both down paths entwined together despite everything else waiting back home. "Should we do this again?" he asked cautiously after taking another sip from his cup, eyes searching mine for answers hidden beneath layers carefully constructed over years spent evading truth lurking just outside reach. "Yes," came out almost instinctively though uncertainty lingered like shadows dancing around edges threatening clarity obscured by fear bubbling up within each heartbeat reminding me what lay ahead might change everything forever. Yet deep down inside, a flicker ignited within, the thrill of possibility overshadowing guilt momentarily allowing dreams once forgotten resurface amid swirling doubts begging resolution only time could provide. I stood in the doorway of my home, the rain pouring down outside, mirroring the tumult inside me. The thrill of our kiss lingered on my lips, a reminder of the connection I had found with my neighbor, Mark. Each drop that splattered against the pavement echoed my racing heart. I had crossed a line, one that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The next morning, the sun peeked through the clouds, casting a warm glow over Portland. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out at the vibrant flowers in our garden. They bloomed with life, contrasting sharply with the dullness of my marriage. My husband, Tom, shuffled into the room, his eyes still heavy with sleep. "Good morning," he said absent-mindedly as he reached for his usual bowl of cereal. "Morning," I replied, forcing a smile. The taste of guilt was bitter on my tongue. How could I pretend everything was fine when I was so aware of what lay outside these walls? As Tom munched on his breakfast, I couldn't shake off the feeling that something had shifted within me. The excitement from last night clashed with my responsibilities as a wife and mother. Our lives had become so predictable, work, chores, and endless small talk that felt more like obligation than connection. Later that day, while walking to my favorite coffee shop in the Pearl District, I spotted an old friend from high school, Lisa. She waved enthusiastically as she approached me. "Is that really you?" "It's been ages," she exclaimed. We embraced briefly before stepping back to take each other in. Lisa looked radiant and carefree, a stark contrast to how I felt. "I heard you moved back to Portland," she said with genuine warmth in her voice. "How's life treating you?" "Busy," I replied cautiously. "You know how it is." "Oh yes," she nodded knowingly. The years fly by. Her gaze softened as she studied me closely. Are you happy? The question hung in the air between us like an uninvited guest. My heart raced as I considered how to respond without revealing too much. I'm managing, I finally said, avoiding her penetrating gaze. Lisa smiled but didn't seem convinced. If you ever want to catch up properly over lunch or something. I'd like that, I interrupted quickly before she could read more into my words than intended. After we exchanged numbers and said our goodbyes, a wave of nostalgia washed over me as I continued toward the coffee shop. The familiar aroma enveloped me as soon as I stepped inside. It was comforting yet filled with memories of better times, before everything became so routine. Sitting down at my usual corner table with a steaming cup in hand, thoughts drifted back to Mark. The way he laughed easily and listened intently during our conversations felt refreshing after years of monotony with Tom. Just then, he walked in, his hair slightly damp from the rain and a smile spreading across his face when he saw me. Mind if I join you? He asked casually while scanning for an available seat. Not at all, I replied warmly despite an internal battle raging within me about boundaries and consequences. As we chatted about everything from art galleries to local events happening around town, time slipped away unnoticed until we found ourselves leaning closer together over our cups, a subtle intimacy growing between us like wildflowers breaking through concrete cracks. Then it happened again. Our lips met softly at first before deepening into something more urgent, a moment suspended in time where nothing else mattered beyond this connection we shared amid laughter echoing around us like music playing just for us two. Reality crashed back when we pulled apart. Guilt clawed at me fiercely now. What was happening? This wasn't who I was supposed to be. I shouldn't. My voice trailed off as uncertainty flooded my mind while looking into his eyes filled with understanding yet mischief alike. A mirror reflecting both desire and danger intertwined beautifully together under this roof filled with strangers unaware of our secret dance unfolding right beside them. We're just enjoying each other's company, Mark said softly but firmly. There was no judgment there, only acceptance, which made it harder still to resist him even though reason begged otherwise. I forced myself to change topics, to steer away from what felt dangerously close to crossing another line. But every word spoken seemed laced with unspoken tension simmering just beneath surface level waiting for another chance to ignite again soon enough. Later that evening when Tom returned home after work laden down with groceries and gifts meant for me, a bouquet of roses wrapped delicately in paper caught my eye immediately sparking confusion inside once more. Why now? Why this surprise? He announced cheerfully while placing them down on kitchen counter next where dinner simmered quietly away, reminding me how much effort went into maintaining appearances even though warmth had long since faded between us both. They're beautiful, I managed weakly, trying not let guilt seep through cracks already forming within heart itself, threatening everything else built upon years spent together side by side without truly seeing one another anymore. Tom beamed proudly before heading off toward living room where kids played unaware their parents danced around, shadows lurking just out reach, waiting patiently until darkness fell fully upon us, leaving little light behind. As night settled around us, the weight pressing heavier than before, I couldn't shake off memories flooding back from earlier today. Laughter shared over coffee shop tables juxtaposed against emptiness surrounding dinner, conversations filled only silence broken occasionally by mundane questions about school or work. What did happiness look like anymore? And why did it feel so far out reach? The following days blurred together, each moment spent trying maintain balance between two worlds colliding mercilessly against one another, threatening collapse entirely if not handled carefully enough. But every encounter with Mark drew me deeper into this new reality where laughter replaced silence, bringing warmth back into spaces long since forgotten beneath layers accumulated dust, hiding truths buried deep inside hearts aching desperately for something more vibrant than mere survival alone. And yet amidst all excitement came fear creeping slowly forward, whispering doubts. Was this truly worth risking everything built over decades spent together? Would pursuing happiness lead only heartbreak, ultimately leaving scars too deep ever heal completely? evenings passed quickly until Friday arrived unexpectedly, bringing rain along again, transforming streets into glistening mirrors reflecting both light-darkness alike, swirling beautifully around corners, inviting exploration beyond familiarity. I found myself standing under awning outside, waiting patiently, hoping chance meeting would occur once again among droplets falling gently above head, creating rhythm soothing enough drown out inner turmoil raging still beneath surface, begging resolution desperately needed. Before choices made spiraled uncontrollably beyond reach, leaving nothing behind but fragments, shattered dreams scattered across pavement, left behind forever lost. The rain continued to fall softly, each drop a reminder of the moment shared with my neighbor. I stood under the awning, watching the street glisten with reflections of life and light, wondering if he would appear again. The warmth of our kiss lingered on my lips, a secret I held close as I navigated my responsibilities at home. Days blurred into one another, filled with mundane chores and forced conversations. My husband, ever the optimist, tried to inject life into our routine. He planned a weekend getaway to the coast, an attempt to rekindle something that had long since faded. "We could use some time together," he said, his eyes hopeful as he handed me a brochure for a quaint bed and breakfast. I couldn't help but feel guilty. Each time he smiled at me, I thought of the stolen moments with my neighbor, the laughter shared over coffee, and the way his gaze lingered on me just a second longer than necessary. The contrast between my two worlds felt stark and unsettling. That Friday evening, as I prepared dinner, I caught sight of him through the kitchen window. He was outside, struggling with boxes on his porch. A wave of impulse washed over me. Without thinking twice, I grabbed my coat and stepped out into the rain. "Need a hand?" I called out as I approached him. He looked up, surprise flickering across his face before it melted into a smile that sent warmth through me despite the chill in the air. "I'd appreciate it," he replied, brushing droplets from his forehead. We worked side by side under the gray sky, laughing as we wrestled with stubborn boxes and awkward furniture. Each moment felt charged with unspoken words and emotions swirling around us like the rain itself. As we took a break beneath an awning, our shoulders brushed together while we caught our breath. "Do you ever feel like you're stuck?" he asked suddenly, his voice low and sincere. I hesitated for a moment before nodding slowly. "More often than not." "I get that," he said thoughtfully. "Sometimes it feels like life is just happening without us." His honesty struck a chord deep within me. We stood there in silence for what felt like an eternity until he leaned closer. My heart raced as our lips met once more in an unexpected kiss beneath the falling rain. It was brief yet electrifying, a moment where everything else faded away except for us. Afterward, we shared stories wrapped in vulnerability, about our pasts and dreams unfulfilled, until night settled around us like an embrace. Time slipped by unnoticed until I realized how late it had grown. "I should get back," I said reluctantly as reality crept back in. He nodded but didn't move from where he stood close to me. "Would you like to come in for some tea?" "Just to warm up." I hesitated at first but then found myself saying yes without fully understanding why. His apartment was cozy, soft light-illuminated bookshelves filled with stories waiting to be explored together. We settled on his couch with steaming mugs in hand, laughter spilling easily between us once more. Hours passed unnoticed as we talked about everything from favorite books to childhood memories until exhaustion began to weigh heavily on my eyelids. "I didn't mean for you to stay so long," he said gently when I yawned. "It's nice here," I admitted quietly, feeling a sense of safety enveloping me that had been absent for years. With that simple statement hanging in the air between us, something shifted. The tension thickened as desire swept through me once again like wildfire igniting dry grass on a summer day. "Maybe you could stay just a little longer," he suggested softly after what felt like an eternity of silence stretched between us. A part of me knew this was crossing a line, yet another part craved this connection fiercely enough that logic faded away entirely in its wake. We spent the night together, became not just words but an unspoken agreement binding our fates together even further than before, an acknowledgement of choices made out of longing rather than reason or consequence. Morning light filtered through curtains when I finally stirred from sleep wrapped snugly against him. A sense of peace washed over me before reality crashed back down hard around us both like thunder rumbling ominously overhead outside. What have we done? His voice broke through my thoughts filled only moments earlier with blissful ignorance about what awaited beyond these walls now separating us from responsibilities awaiting return home. We need to talk, I whispered back uncertainly as apprehension settled deep within my chest, an echoing reminder that every choice carries weight beyond mere moments shared fleetingly amidst rain-soaked streets illuminated by fleeting sparks igniting hope anew. The rain had long since stopped, but the weight of our decision hung in the air like the dampness that lingered on the streets of Portland. I stood there, my heart racing, caught between the thrill of what had just happened and the suffocating reality of my life. We need to talk, I repeated, hoping to find clarity in the words that seemed so inadequate. He nodded, his expression a mixture of concern and understanding. What do you want to say? His voice was steady, but I could see the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. I don't know, I admitted, frustration bubbling beneath my calm facade. Everything feels so complicated. The truth was, I was terrified of what lay ahead. The exhilaration we had shared felt both liberating and burdensome now. Complicated how? He pressed gently, as if coaxing a bird from its nest. I took a deep breath. I love my husband, but, the words trailed off as guilt washed over me like a tide threatening to pull me under. But I can't ignore how I feel when I'm with you. His gaze softened, and in that moment, it felt like we were suspended in time, a bubble where nothing else mattered except for us and this connection that had blossomed unexpectedly. Yet reality loomed large outside our sanctuary. Maybe we should take a step back, he suggested quietly. This isn't just about us anymore. His words struck a chord deep within me. They echoed the thoughts that had been swirling endlessly in my mind since our first kiss under that unexpected downpour. I can't just walk away from everything, I replied, my voice barely above a whisper. The thought of returning to my life felt like stepping into a cage after tasting freedom. Are you sure you want to keep living this double life? He asked, concern etching lines across his brow. The question hung heavily between us as I struggled with an answer that eluded me. My husband had been trying lately, bringing home flowers and planning dinners, but those gestures felt hollow against the emotional distance that had grown between us over years of neglect. I don't know what I want anymore, I confessed at last, feeling vulnerable and exposed. Then maybe it's time to confront him, he suggested gently. You owe it to yourself, and to him, to be honest about how you feel. The idea sent chills down my spine. Confrontation seemed daunting yet necessary. How could I unravel years of shared history in one conversation? And yet, what if this was the only way forward? As if sensing my turmoil, he reached out and squeezed my hand reassuringly. Whatever happens, you're not alone. But even as comfort washed over me momentarily, another wave of guilt crashed in its wake. My husband deserved better than this tangled web of emotions I'd woven around myself. Later that evening at home, as soft light spilled into our living room from the street outside, my husband walked through the door with a bright bouquet of roses cradled in his arms, a gesture meant to rekindle something long extinguished between us. Surprise, he exclaimed with an enthusiasm that felt forced but earnest nonetheless. They're beautiful, I replied mechanically, forcing a smile even as unease gnawed at me from within. I thought we could have dinner together tonight, just us. His eyes sparkled with hope as he set the flowers on the table between us like an offering. I swallowed hard. Memories of laughter shared over meals once filled with joy now felt distant and foreign. That sounds nice. My voice lacked conviction as we settled into awkward conversation punctuated by silence heavy with unspoken truths. After dinner, while washing dishes together, an ordinary task turned extraordinary by tension, I knew it was time to speak up. My heart pounded as I turned towards him. "Can we talk about us?" He paused mid-scrub and looked up at me with cautious curiosity etched across his face. "Of course. I've been feeling disconnected lately," I began hesitantly, searching for words that wouldn't hurt him too deeply while still conveying the gravity of what weighed on my heart. "Disconnected how?" He set down his dishcloth and faced me fully now. Concern flared in his eyes like sparks igniting fresh flames within dry wood. "It's just," my throat tightened around confessions long buried beneath layers of pretense and avoidance. "I feel lost sometimes, like we're living separate lives under one roof." His expression shifted from concern to shock as realization dawned upon him, a painful understanding creeping into every corner of his demeanor. "I didn't know you felt this way," he murmured softly. A lump formed in my throat. Guilt surged anew for bringing pain into his world when all he'd ever done was love me fiercely despite everything else fading away around us over time. The warmth once shared now replaced by chilly indifference creeping through every interaction between us. "I'm sorry," I whispered finally after what felt like an eternity stretched thin between us both. A fragile thread threatening to snap at any moment if pulled too tightly by either side's yearning for connection or desire for truth unmasked beneath layers accumulated over years past. Before he could respond further, before either one could process fully what lay ahead, I heard footsteps echoing down the hallway outside our apartment door followed by a knock resonating against wood like thunder heralding change approaching swiftly through cracks already forming within fragile foundations built upon trust misplaced along paths taken blindly without thought given toward consequences faced when choices made led astray. My heart raced anew as anticipation gripped me tightly, uncertainty lingered thickly in air surrounding us both while questions bubbled forth unbidden. Who could it be? What did they want? Would this moment shatter everything left unsaid or bring clarity amidst chaos reigning supreme? As we exchanged glances filled with trepidation layered atop hope tinged bittersweet, the door swung open revealing not just another visitor but perhaps something far more consequential than either one dared imagine. The door swung open, and there he stood, my neighbor, his expression a blend of concern and vulnerability. The rain drummed steadily against the pavement outside, mirroring the tumult within me. I had come to expect these moments with him, each one layered with unspoken words and unfulfilled desires. But this time felt different, an air of urgency surrounded us. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low but steady. I nodded, stepping aside to let him in. The familiar scent of coffee lingered in the air, mingling with the dampness from outside. As we settled into my living room, I caught a glimpse of the storm brewing behind his eyes. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," he began, his hands fidgeting in his lap. "About us." My heart raced at the implication of his words. The thrill of our secret encounters danced on the edge of my thoughts, but so did the weight of my reality, my stagnant marriage and my husband's recent attempts to reconnect through gifts that felt more like band-aids than genuine gestures. "I don't want to complicate things," he continued, breaking through my reverie. "But I can't ignore what's happening between us." I wanted to tell him that it was too late for that I was already tangled in this web of emotions that threatened to pull me under. Instead, I remained silent, afraid that any word might shatter this fragile moment. His gaze dropped to the floor as he spoke again, quieter this time. "I'm dealing with some things too. My job is changing. It's not just about you and me." The revelation hung in the air like an uninvited guest. I could sense a deeper struggle behind his words, one that mirrored my own life choices and fears. "What do you mean?" I asked cautiously. "I might have to move," he admitted finally, looking back up at me with those earnest eyes that had captivated me from the start. "It's all up in the air right now." The news struck me harder than expected. A part of me felt selfish for wanting him to stay when he clearly had his own life to navigate. Yet another part recognized how intertwined our lives had become in such a short span. Why didn't you say anything before? I didn't want to burden you, he replied simply. Burden? The irony wasn't lost on me. Here we were both carrying our respective weights without even realizing how heavy they had grown over time. Just then, a sudden crash from outside broke our momentary connection, a tree branch falling perhaps from the relentless wind. It jolted us back into reality as I glanced toward the window, rain pouring down in sheets now. Maybe we should take a break, I suggested impulsively. Fear clawed at my insides at the thought of losing him, but staying felt equally impossible. He looked pained by my words but nodded slowly. If that's what you think is best. No. The word escaped before I could stop it. Desperation laced my voice as I reached for his hand instinctively, feeling warmth seep through our skin despite everything else around us feeling cold and chaotic. We can figure this out together, I urged softly. But just as quickly as hope flickered within me, doubt crept back in. Images of my husband's face flashed through my mind, his recent gifts strewn across our home like desperate attempts at rekindling something long extinguished. Maybe it's not just about us, he said quietly after what felt like an eternity passed between us, filled only by raindrops tapping against glass, a reminder of life continuing outside while ours hung precariously in limbo. What do you mean? His expression hardened slightly as if bracing himself for whatever came next. I think we both need clarity about our own lives before diving deeper into whatever this is. His words resonated painfully within me. Clarity seemed elusive yet necessary amidst all this chaos swirling around us, the weight pressing down heavier than ever before. I need time to think, I finally admitted after what felt like hours spent lost within my thoughts, trying desperately not to drown beneath them all while standing before him feeling exposed yet vulnerable, somehow still yearning for more regardless of consequences looming ahead. Take all the time you need, he replied softly before rising from his seat, abruptly breaking our fragile connection once again, leaving only silence hanging heavily between us. Where warmth once thrived moments earlier, now replaced by uncertainty lingering thickly around every corner, waiting patiently until it could strike again, unexpectedly catching either one off guard, completely unprepared. He left quietly without another word spoken between us. The door closing behind him felt final, as if sealing away everything we'd shared thus far, leaving only echoes reverberating throughout, empty space remaining where two souls once dared tread together hand in hand amidst storms raging outside ever since they first met. I stood there alone, staring blankly into nothingness, grappling with conflicting emotions swirling within uncertain future stretching endlessly ahead, filled only by shadows cast upon paths never taken before, each step forward echoing louder than previous ones, reverberating harshly against walls built over years spent trying, desperately holding on to something already slipping away, slowly fading into darkness. Suddenly realization hit hard like thunder crashing down overhead. My husband deserved honesty, yet here I was tangled deep inside lies woven intricately throughout lives lived apart yet intertwined, somehow still managing coexist despite growing distances separating them further apart, each passing day leading inevitably towards inevitable confrontation looming closer than ever before. With renewed determination coursing through veins pulsing fiercely beneath surface, readying myself, confronting truths long buried deep underneath layers built over years spent avoiding uncomfortable conversations. But would it be enough? Would facing reality lead toward healing, or simply unravel everything left unsaid until now, allowing darkness consume whatever light remained flickering dimly within hearts caught between choices made long ago? As rain continued pouring down relentlessly outside, washing away remnants, memories clinging desperately onto past, maybe, just maybe, it was finally time break free from chains binding tightly around soul, yearning desperately breathe fresh air once more without fear, suffocating beneath weight burdens carried far too long. The rain fell harder, drumming against the roof as I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the untouched cup of coffee in front of me. The chaos of emotions churned within me like a storm, each wave crashing against the fragile walls I had built around my heart. My husband, Mark, was in the living room, his voice barely audible over the sound of raindrops. He was trying to reach out, trying to bridge the chasm that had widened between us. I just want us to be okay, he said, his tone laced with desperation. We can work through this. I wanted to believe him. For years, we had navigated life together, raising kids, managing bills, celebrating anniversaries, but somewhere along the way, we had lost each other. The warmth that once filled our home felt like a distant memory now. I glanced out the window toward the neighbor's house. He was probably there, waiting for me to make a choice. The thought sent a thrill through me and a pang of guilt right after. How could I even consider leaving this life behind? Yet every moment spent with him felt like breathing fresh air after being submerged for too long. Mark's footsteps approached. Can we talk? His eyes searched mine for answers I wasn't sure I had. About what? I asked, my voice steady but tinged with uncertainty. About us, he replied softly. I know things haven't been right for a while now. The honesty in his words struck me hard. It was as if he had peeled back layers I thought were hidden well enough. It's complicated, I managed to say. Complicated how? His frustration bubbled beneath his calm demeanor. I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. We've both changed, I whispered finally. We're not who we used to be. Silence hung between us like an uninvited guest until Mark spoke again. I can change too, he insisted. Just tell me what you need. My heart raced at his willingness but faltered at the thought of revealing my truth, the truth about him and my neighbor that loomed like an unspoken shadow over our lives. I don't know what I need anymore, I confessed. Mark sat down across from me and leaned forward slightly, his expression earnest and vulnerable. You're not alone in this, you never were. Those words echoed in my mind as they collided with memories of laughter shared over coffee with my neighbor, the spontaneous moments that ignited something inside me that had long since dimmed. As if sensing my internal struggle, Mark reached out and placed his hand over mine, a gesture meant to comfort but felt suffocating instead. My thoughts drifted back to last week when we shared an evening under the stars with laughter and wine, an evening that ended with more than just conversation. We spent the night together, echoed like a siren call in my head. Please don't shut me out, Mark pleaded softly. I withdrew my hand from under his grasp and stood up abruptly, feeling trapped by his gaze and by my own choices. I need time, I said firmly as I stepped away from the table. The rain continued its relentless rhythm outside while inside felt stiflingly still, a contrast that heightened every emotion swirling around us both. I'll give you space, Mark replied quietly but didn't move from his seat. Just then, my phone buzzed on the counter, an incoming message from my neighbor lighting up the screen, thinking of you. The words sent a jolt through me, they were both comforting and terrifying all at once. What is it? Mark asked sharply as he noticed my expression change. Nothing, I replied quickly, turning away from him as I tried to compose myself while battling conflicting desires within, one urging me towards safety and familiarity while another beckoned adventure and risk. Is it about him? Mark pressed further, now standing up too, his frustration palpable in the air thickening between us. It doesn't matter. My voice rose unexpectedly before dropping back down into strained calmness again. What matters is figuring out what's next for us. Mark's shoulders slumped slightly under the weight of defeat before he nodded slowly as if accepting some unchangeable truth between us both, a truth neither of us wanted but one we couldn't ignore any longer either. Our marriage was hanging by a thread frayed by years of neglect and misunderstanding. I'm willing to fight for you, he said quietly after an agonizing pause filled only by rain tapping insistently against glass panes surrounding us like reminders of choices made under similar storms throughout our lives together. His words hung heavy in the air alongside memories of warmth shared over coffee cups filled with dreams once vibrant now faded into shadows lurking just beyond reach, shadows threatening everything familiar yet offering nothing certain either way forward ahead. As if sensing our emotional stalemate stretching thin enough to break apart completely any moment now, Mark turned away reluctantly toward another room, leaving behind an echoing silence where hope mingled uneasily alongside despair, each fighting for dominance within hearts caught between love lost and newfound desires awakening unexpectedly amid chaos surrounding them both. With trembling hands gripping tightly onto Edge's countertop nearby while watching droplets race down window panes outside, reminding me again how fleeting moments could be, I found myself torn between two worlds. One rooted firmly in past commitments versus another filled with possibilities yet unknown awaiting just beyond reach. Then came another message vibrating insistently against cold surface beneath fingertips: need to talk soon. My heart raced anew. It was from him, the neighbor whose presence brought both lightness yet burdens alike into already complicated life, further tangled up beyond recognition now. And suddenly reality struck hard once more. Choices made would ripple outward, affecting everyone involved far beyond anything anticipated. As darkness fell deeper outside, accompanied only by relentless downpour washing away remnants, memories clinging desperately onto past, it became clear this storm wasn't merely weather-related anymore, but rather symbolic reflection mirroring inner turmoil brewing just beneath surface, threatening everything known before. What would happen next? Would courage win out over fear? Would love survive amidst chaos, or simply fade into echoes lost forevermore? In those moments suspended between decisions awaited ahead lay uncertainty, but one thing remained undeniably true: something significant was about to shift, irrevocably altering course set forth long ago. The rain continued to fall, each drop echoing the uncertainty that clouded my thoughts. I stood in our living room, the dim light casting shadows on the walls, and I could almost hear the weight of my decisions pressing down on me. My husband had just left after our intense conversation, leaving a silence that felt heavier than any storm outside. He had been earnest, his voice tinged with desperation as he laid out his intentions. "I want to make this work," he had said, his eyes searching mine for something, hope, perhaps? I wanted to believe him. The gifts he had given me lately, the flowers, the jewelry, were attempts to rekindle a flame that felt more like a flicker now. But how could I return to what we once had when my heart was elsewhere? After he left, I found myself staring out of the window at the torrential rain. The streets glistened under streetlights, transforming Portland into a city of reflections and blurred lines. My thoughts drifted to my neighbor, the man who had unwittingly become a catalyst for change in my life. His laughter, his kindness, it all felt like fresh air after years of stale routines. But now, as I stood there alone, I remembered his own struggles. He had shared so much during our late-night talks over coffee and rain-soaked walks through Waterfront Park. A job offer loomed over him, a chance to leave Portland for good, and it threatened everything we had built in those fleeting moments together. The phone rang abruptly, pulling me from my reverie. It was him. "Hey," his voice came through clearly despite the static of distance and uncertainty. "Hi," I replied softly, unsure of what else to say. "I got an offer." "It's really tempting," he continued without preamble. "Where?" My heart raced at the implications of his words. "Seattle," he said simply. "They want me to start next month." A lump formed in my throat as I processed what this meant. The distance would stretch between us like an unbridgeable chasm if he left. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." His honesty was both comforting and terrifying. "But it's a big opportunity." I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself against the wave of emotions crashing over me. "You deserve it," I managed to say, though part of me screamed for him not to go. "I know, but what about us?" His question hung in the air like fog settling over the city, a heavy weight that pressed against my chest. "I don't know," I admitted finally. The truth was too complicated to articulate fully. I couldn't bear to think about what losing him would mean for me. "I need time to think," he said quietly before hanging up. The silence returned with renewed intensity as I sank onto the couch, feeling utterly lost between two worlds, one filled with familiarity and obligation and another bursting with possibility yet fraught with risk. Moments later, my husband returned home unexpectedly with takeout from our favorite restaurant, a gesture meant to soothe or perhaps distract from our earlier confrontation. He set down the bags on the kitchen counter and smiled at me as if nothing had changed between us. "Thought you might be hungry," he said cheerfully while unpacking containers filled with steaming food. I forced a smile back but felt hollow inside, like an empty vessel adrift at sea without direction or purpose. "Thanks," I mumbled before turning away towards the window again where raindrops danced along glass panes in chaotic rhythm mirroring my own inner turmoil. "Everything okay?" His voice cut through my thoughts gently. Concern laced within it made me pause momentarily before answering truthfully would have been too much effort for fear of shattering whatever fragile peace we were trying so hard to maintain. "Just tired," I replied instead while avoiding eye contact. Guilt gnawed at me for lying even though it wasn't entirely untrue either. Exhaustion hung heavy upon shoulders burdened by choices neither easy nor clear-cut anymore. Dinner unfolded awkwardly between us. We exchanged pleasantries while avoiding deeper conversations that lingered just beneath surface tension, threatening rupture if probed further than surface-level banter allowed space for comfort zones long established over years spent together navigating life's ups and downs side by side without truly seeing one another anymore beyond familiar routines ingrained into daily existence like clockwork ticking away, moments lost forevermore. As plates cleared away, finally leaving remnants behind scattered across tablecloth stained by spilled sauce, forgotten amidst swirling thoughts still lingering, unanswered questions filled air thick enough, cut with knife held firmly grasped tightly within palm, trembling slightly, betraying unease bubbling beneath surface calm exterior maintained throughout evening spent together, pretending everything remained unchanged despite undeniable evidence pointing otherwise looming just out reach grasp. Then came another call, this time from an unknown number, flashing across screen-illuminated darkness surrounding me, enveloping room completely devoid warmth, previously shared moments now feeling cold instead, suffocating presence looming large overshadowing everything else around. "Hello?" My voice trembled slightly, betraying nerves rising swiftly within chest, tightening, painfully constricting, breath escaping, lips barely audible above din echoing loudly through empty space surrounding me right now. "Is this my name?" A woman's voice emerged, crisp, clear, cutting through haze fog, clouding mind, momentarily pulling focus back towards reality, confronting head-on rather than hiding away behind walls built strong enough withstand storms raging outside while ignoring tempest brewing inside. Heart yearning, desperately reconnect lost connections somehow forgotten amidst chaos unfolding around every corner encountered lately. "Yes," I answered cautiously, unsure where conversation might lead next, feeling vulnerable, exposed, standing naked beneath scrutiny, unable escape judgment lurking just beyond reach, waiting patiently observe how respond next. "I'm calling about your neighbor," she continued matter-of-factly, catching breath held tightly within lungs, releasing slowly, allowing clarity seep back into consciousness, grounding self amidst turmoil surrounding present circumstances threatening overwhelm entirely if not careful. Remain steady, focused, grounded firmly upon solid ground beneath feet planted firmly regardless storms raging outside, world beyond control anymore. "What about him?" Heart raced wildly, pounding rhythmically against ribcage, desperate escape. Confinement felt almost unbearable, suffocating slowly, inch by inch, creeping closer toward edge, precipice teetering dangerously close, brink, uncertainty looming ahead, threatening plunge headlong into abyss unknown awaiting below, dark depths, concealed shadows hiding secrets buried deep within fabric woven intricately throughout, lives intertwined forevermore, tangled mess left behind, unraveling threads connecting past, present, future. "I can't say much, but there are some things you should know." Her tone shifted slightly, hinting urgency hidden beneath layers, professionalism cultivated carefully throughout years spent navigating delicate conversations, often involving sensitive matters requiring utmost discretion, maintained privacy paramount, importance upheld fiercely, always protecting those entrusted, confide deepest fears, uncertainties shared openly, seeking solace, comfort, reassurance provided freely whenever possible, despite Hardships faced daily endured silently, never revealing truth lurking beneath surface appearances crafted meticulously designed conceal reality faced regularly day after day. What things? Words escaped lips, barely forming coherent sentences, straining against weight pressing down heavily upon shoulders burdened, already carrying too much baggage accumulated long since lost count, how many times revisited memories replayed, endlessly looping cycle, repeating itself ad infinitum, spiraling downward, spiraling toward inevitable conclusion reached, ultimately arriving destination uncertain, awaiting patiently arrival meant face consequences, actions taken, choices made along way. Leading here, standing crossroads, momentous occasion demanding decisive action taken soon, lest linger indefinitely, trapped limbo existing between two worlds forevermore, unable choose path forward, illuminated brightly beckoning, enticingly promising. Adventure unknown yet fraught, danger lurking just beyond horizon, waiting patiently, observe how respond next, whether succumb pressures surrounding, succumb fears holding tight grip, preventing movement forward, breaking free chains binding tightly around. Soul yearning desperately, breathe fresh air again, feel sun shining warmth upon skin once more, instead hiding away darkness enveloping entire being, suffocating slowly, inch by inch creeping closer toward edge, precipice teetering dangerously close, brink uncertainty looming ahead, threatening plunge headlong into abyss unknown, awaiting below, dark depths, concealed shadows hiding secrets buried deep within, fabric woven intricately throughout, lives intertwined forevermore, tangled mess left behind. Unraveling threads connecting past, present, future.